Good afternoon, everyone. We are at Writers of the Future in Los Angeles, California. And this good-looking guy in front of me is Orson Scott Card, and I've just heard numbers and great things about him, and I've caught a couple of interviews about him. That seems like a fabulous guy, so we're going to talk a little bit about it and talk to him. If y'all are out there, remember, I am in here until Saturday, and I will be giving a lecture in Atlanta on Sunday, so y'all can catch me out there. Before anybody asks, because you always ask me stupid questions, the only way you can get into this is to go to writersofthefuture.com and submit. And before you do that, go read the rules, because one, there's certain rules about how you can present things, because this is blind judging. They only judge by numbers. There's no names. So when the judges get this, they don't know what you look like. They don't know what color you are. They don't know what sex they are. All they got is the story. So it's a very unique thing. I said I was very impressed when I found this out. I said it's probably good for some of you ugly people, because they might say, "Oh my God, we're not bringing him to LA. We're not doing that, man. We're not doing that." But Orson's got a lot of credits to him, and he's been a writer for a long time. So let's just start out. Orson, tell him your name and how you got involved in writing. Well, let's do this. What was it that made you know that you could write?
Oh, other people's bad writing. I've always told my students there are two reasons to become a writer. One is you read something you love and you say, wow, I want to be able to do something like that for other people. That's a noble desire. But the one that works is, well, if that crap got published, I can write. That's a good motive, because it gives you not so much confidence as a disdain for other people's judgment. They thought that was worth publishing, and they don't think mine is worth publishing. Well, they're crazy. And if you have that idea in mind, you can keep writing even when you're not getting published.
How old were you when you thought you could act? Because I know when I talk to authors, some were like this big, some were this age, some were this age, and it just seemed to, all of a sudden they started writing. And any formal schooling, or when you started?
Well, I went to grade school and everything, have a college degree. I have a master's degree in English, which has nothing to do with my writing. But I wasn't going to be a writer. I was going to be a doctor for a while. And then I found out you had to learn math. And there was a while when I wanted to be a general, until I found out that the Civil War was over. And because I was a total Civil War buff. And so I entered college as an archaeology major. I mean, clearly I was not intending to be a writer. But in the meantime, I was writing my whole life, because my family, we're Mormons, and in Mormon culture, there is a kind of a commitment to drama, to plays. And my parents would write or produce or direct or whatever, these little 10-minute plays that we called roadshows. And at first they were competitive, and the best ones would end up going to Salt Lake City. And, so those were, the idea of a churchwide contest was fun. But the main thing was you got to take 10 minutes of an audience's time and say things in front of them to entertain them. And so I wrote some roadshows. My mom had written some, but it was not a career. It was an amusement.
I think I've seen some. I have a few friends that are Mormons, and I do spend once or twice a year. I'm in Salt Lake City, Utah, and there's what's the other one? I go lecture. I can't remember the damn name of the town now. They do have lectures out there outside. They have these big screens they put outside, and most of them are Mormons too, by the way. And so
you're talking about Tuacahn in southern Utah?
It's in southern Utah for sure, because I know it's not that far from Area 51.
Yeah,
because we always go down.
It's Tuacahn.
Yeah, so we go down there, and it's a lot of fun. We have a great group of people down there. Actually, have some pretty good food down there too. And we do these outdoor interviews, and we do these, and so they put on these little shows sometimes in between the speakers. And at first, I didn't really see. Now you've kind of cleared that up for me, because I didn't really know exactly where they were coming from. And because one of my friends who's a Mormon, he likes to he just likes to explore the deserts. He can't keep his butt out of the desert. Every time I talk to him, he's somewhere in some desert, somewhere doing something, or finding some ghost town somewhere or something. Wait, can't you sit still for 5 minutes, man? I said, what is it with you? He said, I just can't. And he actually got me some tours and some stuff like that were Mormon related. I'm not going to get into here because I might offend somebody, but there's I tell people all the time, we talk about religions and God and all kind of stuff all the time. I said, don't ever base someone on their religion. I said, base them on themselves. I said, I've got friends in every religion there is pretty much, and some are really good people, and some of them are just dumbasses. I said, it got nothing to do with God. I said, they're just dumbasses.
And there's no correlation between which group it is. Yeah.
No, and there's no correlation between which group it is. It's a very strange thing to see. And so we talk about those kind of things. We have shows that we actually do specialties on stuff like that. But so writing for that had to at least give you a little boost.
Well, I enjoyed doing it, and I was good at it, but so was everybody else in my family. And so there was nothing. No, it's not even competitive. It was just I was going to do one, and so they would rally around and help support it. But it didn't have to be me; it could be somebody else. And so, in fact, in a way, I'm still kind of doing it with the family. Back when they were doing the sesquicentennial of the entry of the Mormon pioneers into Salt Lake Valley, they had a play that they had commissioned, but the script came in at 4 hours. There's no way anybody's going to sit still for that.
Yeah.
And so I was brought in to do it over, and they told me that they wanted it to be no longer than an hour, and be essentially the whole story of the trek across the prairie by people with covered wagons. And so the reason I was asked was because my brother, who is a composer, a film composer and a session musician, had been hired to write the music, and he had terrific music fit to really bad lyrics, because these people didn't know how to write lyrics. They didn't know how to write a play. They certainly didn't know how to write lyrics. And so I had to write lyrics to my brother's music, which was really fun. It was really cool, because we were working together. It was great. Yeah.
You know, I had seen a reenactment of the original track across coming to Utah, and a friend of mine invited to me while I was in Salt Lake City. It was like a play, I guess you could say. It was a couple hours long, and I actually enjoyed it. To be frank, I had no idea about any of this stuff. Okay?
Yeah.
So it was an education for me, and so we've done a couple specials on it since then. And it's you know, as you learn and go along, I learned things about different groups or different religions that sometimes I didn't know was like that. Y'all's is very interesting, by the way. And in this country, it's different. You can do things here that some places people might not appreciate. Europe not so much, but the rest of the world's a little bit on the weird side. But you know, when I went to the play, I was like, wow, I kind of thought I had an idea, okay, like an ignorant American, because that's basically what I was. But after seeing the play, I realized I knew about one thing, nothing else.
Yeah.
And, but it was very interesting, and I enjoyed it. So, and I like being educated. I can't help myself. I'm constantly. They'll put me in a grave looking for things. I mean, I can't help myself. It's just who I am.
Well, and that's, of course, that's one of the things I tell writers. If you're going to be a writer, no matter what genre you're writing in, you have to have a lifelong quest of learning everything about everything. And I say you can't achieve it. You can't get there. But man, if you're not on that road, you're not ready to write.
Seeing this here, I agree 100% because I watch life experiences makes things much easier to write about because you can kind of incorporate that. Even if it's sci-fi, you can still kind of
Oh, absolutely. Humans are humans.
And especially me because I'm kind of a fan of what do they call it, near now sci-fi or whatever. I know I'm saying it wrong, but you know, something sci-fi within like say 100 to 500 years of where we are today. I don't know why I like it. I just do it because there's shows like The Expanse and Babylon 5. And,
okay, yeah, I get what you mean. I've never heard that term before, but
yeah, I'm probably saying it wrong. Actually,
no, you're probably not saying it wrong. I've sort of been out of the field as a participant. I don't go to conventions anymore, so I don't. If there's some buzzword coming along, I won't have heard it. I learned it from you.
Because of these guys here.
Well, good.
It's an education too. How many books you got these days?
Oh, I don't know, somewhere north of 70. But
good,
my publisher is really nice about keeping my backlist in print, because that's the thing that kills you as a writer, is to have written the work of your life, and it has a 3-year run, and then people have to pay $180 for it in a used bookstore because it's now rare.
Yeah, because nobody can find it. And at least they do have the used books. I mean, before. I know 20 years, 30 years ago, it didn't really seem to be that popular. Or I guess because Amazon's here now and everybody else is here.
Amazon tagged them on to their coattails.
And that's if you work that hard, it needs to be out there. Personally, I think every book ever printed should be available. But that's me personally.
Well, it should be. The problem is indexing.
Yeah, but today we got all this. We have hard drives now, and we can store massive amounts of data now. I mean, personally, I have almost 100 terabytes of data. And I'm just a little radio station. I can imagine what big companies have handed. What's your favorite? You got a favorite, particular favorite?
Of my books?
Yeah.
Well, they were
They're
all
all
my
your
favorite.
favorites.
They were all my favorites while I was writing them. But it's like my kids. If you ask me who's my favorite child, I'll go, oh, I love them all. But secretly, at any given time, I have a favorite because parents can't help it. There's one that you'd rather see and be with than the next one. And I don't think there's anything to be ashamed of in that. You're supposed to, if you love your children in the sense of serving their needs and interests and helping them, keeping them alive, you can do that equally among all your kids. But in terms of enjoying their company and enjoying playing games with them, some of them are more fun than others.
Some are, and some are more even tempered than others. I got a 38-year-old son. Sometimes I want to smack upside his head. Just the other day, Dad, can I borrow your car? He's 38. What do you want my car for? I mean, that kind of stuff gets on your nerves after a while.
Your car's the one that I hid all the cocaine in, so I got to take that for the delivery.
Probably the little shit's always in some kind of trouble. Now, when I answer this question, and you don't have to answer it, I watched Ender's Game, and I'm just going to blatantly ask you this: were you happy with the way they did that movie?
Well, let's say this: I saw a cut of the movie that made me furious because the writer had done every single thing I told him in our first meeting I did not want to see done, all the bad ideas, and he did every one of them. But then I watched it with a live audience, pre-premiere, and the new studio that had come in to fund the last part of it had sent an executive down who eliminated most of the things that I just hated. Some of them are still there because it was too costly to reshoot. There's some dumb things in there that don't fit the science and don't fit the story. But what movie is that not true of?
Oh, that's true.
So I feel like the only reason that I am unable to watch it is Asa Butterfield. He was a good actor, but he was 6 inches taller than the other kids, and Ender was supposed to be the smallest. And a lot of the story doesn't work unless he's smaller than the other kids. So that one always bothered me. But the fact is, when you have a writer-director who hates you, which this guy did, then you're not going to get something to be pleased with or proud of. So every now and then, Ender's Game, I see it's on HBO, but I don't start watching it because it just makes me sad.
Well, and see, that bites because, I've talked to other authors who got movies out there. A good friend of mine, whose movie is Fire in the Sky, he calls me up one day. We were doing an interview about what that movie's actually about. He calls me. He said, "Have you seen the movie yet?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "What do you think?" I said, "It's not the book." I said, "It's not that the movie was horrible." I said, "But it's not the book." I said, "So when people call me or we're doing interviews, people come in and said, 'Well, Travis, why didn't that stuff happen?' I said, No. I said, the first part of the movie is correct. The second part of the movie is complete garbage." I said, "It was a complete lie." And I said, "They just needed to puff it up so it would sell better." And he's still pissed about it. The movie was made 20 years ago. He's still pissed about it. Every time I talk to him, he's like, "I can't believe they did that." I said, "Well, you should have had a contract that said they couldn't." I said, "But a lot of times you can't even do that." I said, "Because if you want it out there, they're going to do what they want to do." I said, "It's not good. And if you got like 10 movies behind you, it's different." I said, "But your first or second one, they're going to pretty much do what they want to do." Yeah. I mean, I've watched it again, and I enjoyed the movie. I just thought it was a little different.
From the book.
Yeah, I did. And then I said, maybe it's been a while since I read it, but maybe I'm just, not remembering right because I'm getting older. And then I said, "Oh, well, I'm just going to let it go." And then I know everybody I talked to really enjoyed the movie. So when people tell me, I just let it go. Yeah. And I'm like, there's no reason. If they enjoyed it and they liked it, okay, that's fine.
Yeah, why am I going to complain about that? Here's the miracle that having a movie does for the writer. It spurs sales of the book. Whatever amount of money they pay you, it's really nothing compared to the promotion of the book. So I made more from book sales at the time of that movie than I did from the movie, and by kind of a lot. And how was I going to complain about that? All these people who had read Ender's Game 30 years before, now the movie's coming out, they bought a new copy and read it. And I'm not going to complain about that.
They wanted to see how it was. And that's a good thing. I mean, that's what Travis told me. He said, "I probably sold about 40,000 books right off the bat." He said, "I was surprised." He said, "Matter of fact, the publisher had called me because the book was semi-retired, and he said they had to get his permission to bring it back out." And he said, sure, because the book is good. I've read the book, but it's supposed to be about a true story about somebody who was taken off a mountain in was it Arizona? I don't know. Some aliens are supposed to have taken him. He's a logger, and according to him, it was a true story. And everybody who was there was polygraphed. Now past polygraphs, but it was. But when they did the movie, they took that part away. So what made the movie true, what made the book true, the movie just officially annihilated. And plus, everything he described as the aliens were totally different than what they looked like.
They were going to. They had to go with the traditional images.
Yeah, and they did, that's exactly what they did. And I was laughing. And I said, "Well," I said, "Write another one." He said, "I'm still pissed." I was like, whatever. But he's not an author. He was an experiencer who wrote a book.
Yeah.
And he's put out a part 2 of it now, but he's not somebody who feels like he can sit there and write. So you can just go and say, well, I'll just write another one and then we'll make something better or something different. But I do. But again, I mean, a lot of people did like it. So you can't, you
no complaint. If somebody says, I loved your movie, the only thing I'll correct them on is say, well, it wasn't my movie.
Yeah.
I had nothing to do with the movie, but I'm glad you liked it. Because I am glad they liked it.
Yeah.
Because chances are it would make them recommend the book to somebody. So,
as a matter of fact, when just a couple of months ago, we were talking about this. And, I just right after I was working the course, I said, "Oh, I was listening to Orson's got a course in this course," and they're like, "Oh, we're talking about his." No, I said, "No, he wasn't talking about his movie. He was telling people how to learn how to write." I said, "That's what I was there for, you know." It was like that, and he's going on and on about it. I said, "Well, you know what? Why don't you go buy the book and read the book?" And he said, first thing out of his mouth, "Is there an audio version?" I said, "I have no idea." I said, "But go get the book." I said, "If there's not an audio version, you can use this a thing online you can get now that'll scan the book and read it for you." And because he's like me, he has very little free time. And so he went back and he called me. That was about 2 weeks later. He said, "Man, the book's really good, Joe." I said, "Well, write to Orson and tell him the book's really good." And he said, "I got issues." I said, "Well, don't write to me. I can't do anything for you. Write to the author, man." And I don't know if he ever did or not, but because I mean, when he called me, he was really in a whole different attitude after he read the book. He was like, "Damn, the book is really good." And he said, "I'm glad I didn't read it before the movie," which one of them things I do hate. If I happen to catch a book before a movie, I always hate it because it's never the same damn thing.
Yeah.
It's a matter of fact, I actually seen a weird version of Gone with the Wind just recently.
Really?
And I was like, what the hell is... I said, my mom is probably rolling over her grave right now. I don't even know what that was about. I guess somebody thought they could make it better than what it was. I don't even know why they screw with classics. Just leave it.
I never heard of another version of Gone with the Wind
I hadn't either.
unless it was based on the parody novel, The Wind Done Gone.
I have no idea what this was, but when I seen this, I was like, and I only watched it for about 50. Actually, my wife didn't change it because she's a big fan of Gone with the Wind. She said, "I don't know what the hell this is." She said, "It's supposed to be part of Gone with the Wind." I said, "Baby, I don't know. You don't want to watch it. I'm definitely not going to watch it." And never did find out what it was. I just let it go. I got busy with other stuff. Yeah. Just let it go. But and then you get these trilogies sometimes from one book that they take one book and they turn it into some books you can do that with, and then
usually not.
It's a lot. What was that one? Or I tell people all the time, like sometimes the book don't need to be trilogy. The movie does. Like when you talk about what's that one that L. Ron Hubbard wrote? Not Mission Earth, the Battlefield Earth.
Yeah.
If they wanted that movie to be good, it should have been 3 books. I didn't even enjoy the movie, but because first off, these guys who are living in caves learn how to find Harriers in a week. It's not gonna happen. We're figuring out pilots can't learn how to fly. It takes them a year to learn how to fly them things. So things like that are just if you're trying to make a movie that you want to make at least look partially real, then you've got to do the right things.
So there are movies that I enjoy and they're really dumb. And I know they're dumb.
Yeah, I got some dumb.
But I don't care. Independence Day, scientifically so dumb it hurt, but not bad enough for me not to enjoy the movie because
there's some good satire.
There's good satire and there's clunky dialogue
like
and it achieves banality several times. But you know what? It was a good movie.
It was fun to watch. It was a little goofy, but it was definitely fun to watch. Especially what's the name out there kicking the alien.
Yes, that was so fun.
It was.
Punching him out and knocking him out. That was great.
It was. If y'all don't know what movie that is, you're gonna have to go find out for yourself. It's Independence. I still haven't watched part 2 of it though. Independence 2. I haven't. Well, eventually I'll sit down and watch it. But
I didn't hate it. It was fine, but it didn't give me the same thrills that I got from the first one.
And sometimes I'll see a trilogy and it'll progress pretty good. What I hate is when I see a movie being remade 4 or 5 or 6 times.
How many new Spider-Man origin stories do we need to have?
That is just ridiculous. Now we got woke Spider-Man, which I'm completely confused about. I'm like, come on, people. I said, sometimes you have to just leave something alone. I know we're in this new woke society, but it don't work for a lot of things. No. It just doesn't.
But the woke society punishes dead people for doing things that were completely legal when they were alive.
Yeah, when they were alive.
And I just think, why do we have to tear down the statues of people who made great contributions to our country and happened to own slaves at a time when it was completely legal?
But I was talking to a friend about that just recently. He's going on about something. I said, Washington owned slaves, right? He said, no. I said, oh, yes, he most certainly does. So I'm not ripping down none of his statues anywhere. And they're like, no, he didn't. I said, you better go read your history, man. He most certainly did.
In fact, it was so complicated because he had his own slaves, which he freed eventually.
Yeah.
But he couldn't free his wife's slaves. That was the wealth of her family. That was her inheritance. And so he could not liberate slaves that didn't belong to him.
Yeah, that was a lot back then. And there's other people that you find out that, and then a friend of mine got mad at me one time because I said, well, when just white people own slaves. He's like, what? I said, I'm going to get into it with you. Just going to need to read for yourself and educate yourself. I said, our society is so much more complicated than TV wants to make it. And I can understand you need to compress and squish.
And you need a good guy and a bad guy.
You always need a good guy and a bad guy. And I have found like some of the Marvel movies lately have been lacking. I don't get the same zing bang out of like that last one they did had part 1 and part 2. Part 1 was okay. Part 2 sucked. And I was like, well, I'm not going to hate on it. It's just a fun movie to watch. And we're always killing off the good guys these days instead of the bad guys, which still confuses me. I said, guys, the good guy's supposed to live. And then we're going to change characters and add characters. One of the things that bothers me about society today, okay, if there's lots of characters out there, but we can create new characters every day. There's lots of authors out there that can create new characters. So why take a character and change what that character is instead of just bringing in a new character and making that character what you want it to be? But I'm not in the film business, so I can't tell.
I'll tell you, it's the sheer terror of the money people in Hollywood, because the people who have control of studio money are terrified of losing their job, because the moment they lose their job, they're nobody. They disappear. And so that's death. And so they want to make movies. They want to pump money into movies that are sure to make back the investment and more. And Marvel has become a dependable cash cow. DC, not so much, but their comics also, the Superman, once they got the current guy, I can't remember his last name, he's terrific. He's a terrific. And so his Superman was the first good Superman movie, I thought, Man of Steel. Yeah. And it was a new origin story. It started over, but it had a wonderful cast. The only thing I liked about the first Superman with Christopher Reeve was Glenn Ford as his dad. Everything else was just clowning.
It was kind of goofy. It was kind of a goofy movie. So there's a DC Legends, which in the old days would have been breaking every norm there is, because the women are in charge. Half the crew is gay. Matter of fact, one of the Supermans plays, and he's one of the actors in the thing. And it's a lot of fun to watch. It's just pure stupidity. Don't take it for any more than what it is. It's just supposed to be stupid. That's what it's supposed to be. I mean, one of the bad guys was some big fluffy stuffed doll thingy that was blown up into the air. So it's just.
So it sounds like the airplane version of Superman.
Yeah, it's just basically a big stupid movie. And then you get into the Batman movies and you go back and forth. I mean, how many Batmans have we had now?
Too many, but Christian Bale was wonderful, and I don't need any others besides him.
And then I know people like Kilmer. I can't think of his name.
Val Kilmer.
Yeah, Val Kilmer. Some people like him. I liked the last set. I thought they were pretty good, except for that the little voice could have been changed a little bit. But other than that, I was happy with them. And I just come on, people. How many Batmans have we? It just after a while, it just gets ridiculous.
Yeah.
It just and then or at least give us a break in between. Give us.
That's the thing is that with Spider-Man, it was like back to back to back with the three versions.
And then when we have the Batman's with Spider-Man with 3 different Spider-Mans on it.
Yeah. No, there was a recent DC movie that had all the Spider-Mans coming together, or was it all the Batmans? Anyway, I
No,
don't
that was
care.
Spider-Man. That's what it was.
Spider-Man.
Yeah, it was Spider-Man.
But Spider-Man, is that Marvel?
Uh,
I never knew the difference.
Spider-Man is Marvel, but Spider-Man's kind of different. It's they originally belonged to Sony, just like the X-Men. So they weren't originally with Marvel, but I think they're all with Marvel now.
Yeah.
So I get confused with that stuff because there's so much buying and selling going on. And then, of course,
And
Disney. See, the biggest problem with all the new movies is Disney owns them. Disney, baby, I know y'all listening. I'm not trying to hate on y'all, but the last couple of Star Wars were lacking at best. Last couple of Marvel movies were lacking at best. I mean, y'all dump all this money in there, train the actors.
well, and the real frustration is, they buy a product, not realizing that they're buying the rights to various franchises, but they're also paying for the people. You're supposed to take it over, and if you're smart, you don't fire anybody.
Yeah,
you keep the people who made it good. But that's not the strategy that Disney has seemed to use.
Well, the other lady who was the one that wanted to make half the park, all the employees in the park were going to be transvestite or gay. That's why she got fired. The old guy came back. That's 72 or 73. They brought him back, and he's trying to get back some of the old Disney back in there because they're going so woke, people were stopping watching. You know, I tell those people all the time, you can be woke, that's fine, but once you get to a certain point, nobody's going to watch you anymore. And ladies and gentlemen, I hate to say this, but 80% of the country is not woke.
Right.
They're just not. They're not going to be anytime soon. Because I was really surprised. I watched Oppenheimer the other day, and I was surprised to see everybody was smoking cigarette. Everybody's puffing, And I was
because
really
that was the 40s, yeah.
And that's how it would have been back then. So I was surprised to see it. Best picture. I hate to say this, ladies and gentlemen, I don't think it was best picture, but I'm not going to go there. I found it was an enjoyable movie, but there was just some spots in there that were just so slow and so I was like, yeah, y'all best picture, that's fine, but that's okay. Maybe you should write something like that. Maybe you should write something about Einstein.
Well,
I've never seen anything about
it. Biopics are hard, and Einstein's life is complicated. He's not always a nice guy.
No, he's not always.
And so that makes it hard to film.
He's not always a loyal guy either.
No.
He was an interesting character. I don't know how you're right. I don't know how well that would go over in the United States because a lot of people I don't even think really know his history. And
you just said a sentence. A lot of people, and you said wouldn't go over in the United States because a lot of people don't know his history. American history education does not exist.
You ain't kidding about that. I was lucky. I got to go to private schools growing up, and I went to Catholic and private schools. Eventually, I got out of Catholic religion, but I went to private school. So my son, anytime I had a chance to put him in one of those, if I couldn't put him in a private school because of whatever reason, I would find the best. Even if I had to move, I would find the best public school I could put him in, something that had really good numbers, because you have to have an education to survive in this country, especially if you want to make money.
But the sad thing is, you don't actually have to be educated in history to make money in America.
Yeah, apparently not.
But to be a writer, if you don't have a grounding in history, you're dead to start with.
Very true, very true. Because I always wonder, I listen to things sometimes on TV or I listen to some people speaking. I'm like, where'd you go to school?
Yeah.
Please tell me so I don't have to send anybody there. I just don't know what. Somewhere along the line, we just went from, hey, we're smart to, let's be dumb. But just perfect example, I stopped to get something to eat the other day. I gave the guy, it was a $6.50, so I gave him $10.50. I said, can you get $2 back? Oh my God. You'd have thought I shot the sucker or something. Oh, the computer says this. I said, what? What do you mean? Yeah, I put it in the thing and it says this. I said, dude, you don't know how to count? I said, how old are you? I graduated high school. I said, you sure you graduated high school? Did you take math at all? I'm like, I don't want to get me started. We ain't going to get in it. Ladies, I'm sorry, people. That stuff makes me crazy.
Makes me crazy too. Look, anybody who's raised kids in America knows that our education system, despite well-meaning teachers, the teachers have been taken over by their union, which is far, far left. It's so woke, it hurts.
It is.
And it hurts education to have an ideology controlling everything. Back when it was conservative ideology in the 1950s, it hurt our education. There were things that were concealed from us. We got the impression in the 50s that America invented everything. the shock when I found out
I know.
that Mercedes-Benz was the first car company, that the Benz invented the car. I thought, well, wait a minute. Didn't Henry Ford? And the answer is no. And the assembly line, he was just adapting it from the garment industry, and there were assembly lines, but they'd always hung from the ceiling as it went along, and he did the assembly line that ran on the ground.
I guess he would be an innovator.
He was an innovator. He was in so many ways a great man, though he was also a ridiculous anti-Semite for reasons passing understanding, because no Jew ever did anything bad to him. I don't understand why he. Yeah, I don't understand
There's a few
anti-Semitism.
people like that I bet go off and things like that. I'm like, what? I said, what? And because one of the things we do on the show sometimes, we were talking about racism a while back, and a friend of mine got real mad at me. I said, dude, racism is taught. I said, you put a group of kids together in a room, 5, 6, 7 years, they're not racist. They're playing with each other. I said, mom and dad gets involved in the whole damn thing. Changes.
Yeah.
I said, it's just our society's line, and we are learning at least a little bit. Slowly.
Well, I remember in Greensboro, North Carolina, it's one of the most egalitarian cities in the South, because the town was framed by Cone mills, and the Cones were Jews. And so let's say the Klan did not thrive in Greensboro. But when my daughter was 9, she went to a birthday party. And as the kids were all coming out, I was looking at them, and I overheard some woman saying to another woman, well, it's just good to have them get together without that element. And so when my daughter came out, I asked her, how did it go? And I said, was everybody from your class there? Yeah. And I said, were any of the black kids there? And she thought for like 3 seconds and burst into tears, because her best friend was black, but she hadn't noticed her absence. And I just thought, okay, my daughter felt it. She knew what it was like to be in a purely white racist gathering. Yeah. And the cake was good.
Well, my son he just got school because he's an interracial. He got married. And I told him, I said, be careful going up north. He said, well, he said, the North always said the South is racist. I said, race is pretty much dead in the South. We have class wars in the South now, not so much race wars. And I said, but you go up north, it's going to be different. He said, oh, no, Daddy. So he gets up, they go to Michigan. 2 restaurants asked him to leave. And he said several people gave him trouble. I said, then he went over to Boston and they gave him trouble. He said, Dad, this is supposed to be the part. I said, no, it was the part of the country that wasn't 50 years ago. I said, now they're the part that is. I said, it's just somehow like flip-flop.
Well, Harper's Magazine did a review of the Civil War a couple of years after. And so I read that. It was really interesting to see the perspective right after. But the weirdest part of it was that they just openly stated, the North hates black people, but the South lives with them, uses them, exploits them, but the North hates them. And I thought, this was before the emigration of blacks from the South to the North. But that is the attitude that you saw. I'm going to waste your time with this story, but my mother-in-law. Oh, good. My mother-in-law lived in Utah. Utah has hardly any black people. Then it had almost none, only in Salt Lake City and Ogden. And that was it. And usually they were in the military if they were in Ogden. So it's a pretty lily white state, but it's also mostly Mormon. And so whatever they're doing would be a part of Mormon culture. So this is what happened to her when she was a young woman. She wasn't married yet, maybe 20 years old. Maybe she was already out of college. I don't remember. But she and a friend were driving along in one of the canyons of northern Utah, and they got in a car wreck. And my mother-in-law was thrown out of the car and scraped her face and along the black asphalt, and then rolled over when she came to rest, so that the blackened part of her face was up. And the ambulance driver and attendant came, and they were going to leave her because none of the hospitals in the area would accept a black patient. Now she was unconscious. She only learned this later from her friend, but her friend yelled, just screamed at them, "She's white. And when they turned her over, they could see she was, but it shouldn't have made a difference. When I heard that, I was just shocked. And I said, well, what did Black people do? Because there were no hospitals in Utah in those days that would take a Black patient. Well, if there's a Black doctor in their community, then he'll at least look at what he can do. He won't have all the facilities. But in Utah, there weren't enough to have a lot of Black doctors around either, because they had to make all their money from Black patients. So that racism of the South, I have found that in the South, there's so much more understanding between the races than in the North.
There is now. It's weird because I tell us people all the time, like Louisiana is 36% Black, Mississippi is 40%. So when you go across the entire Gulf Coast, the majority of Blacks live in those 5 states, and we've all learned we have to live.
Yeah,
there's too many of us now. You can't get racist. You get racist, there's gonna be a big war. So we're not. We go partying together, we eat together, we go to Mardi Gras together, we go to Jazz Fest together. There isn't that. Matter of fact, if there's any crime, it's usually Black on Black or white on white. There's rarely any crime Black on white or white on Black. So
that line in the town is kind of uncrossable.
Yeah, it's we've changed now. Everybody lives together and everybody enjoys living together. Matter of fact, because of Katrina, we tore all the ghettos down. There's no ghettos at all, which changed. It transformed the city in a way that I really did not understand until about 5 years later, because now everybody's living in nice communities, and what they came back with were really high-end apartments. So they would put you on, if you were on like welfare or something, you'd get one, and then a rich person would buy the next one. The next one would be welfare. The next person, a rich person, would buy one. So these kids are actually getting real educations and are mixing with people who will help them to get ahead instead of leaving them behind. So it's just nice to see it. It's weird, but
that's so encouraging. I love hearing that.
And it's changed. I mean, it's changed since I was a kid. When I was a kid, if you were Black and you lived in the city and you came to Metairie, they were going to put you in a car and bring you back to the city. You were not allowed in Metairie. But once Harry Lee left, who was the sheriff that was doing it, that changed. And then slowly but surely that changed. And then, when all that stuff got tore down in the city, well, they had to have a place to live. So they migrated into the suburbs. And now everybody's living, having the crime. The crime's going to die. That didn't happen.
No.
That's not what happened.
No.
And to be honest with you, you can see a marked difference in the kids, the educational value. Of course, the Southern schools aren't the best, but you can just see a difference. It was just such a change, and it was such a weird thing to see. And that's when I started realizing in the South that we weren't really racist anymore as much as we had class wars.
Yeah.
You're either rich or you're poor, you're somewhere in between, and the rich just didn't give a shit about anybody anyway. So it was just one of those things. It was just such a nice change to see, and it still changed. And then I had a friend of mine came and see me one day about slavery. He wanted to do an article on it. I said, look, you're going to mess yourself up. I said, I know you've seen all these movies and all. I said, but the majority of slave owners were not what you see on TV. I said, they paid big money for these slaves. It's like when you buy your prize horse, you're not going to beat it to death. It's not what you're going to do. You need it. I said, you may not treat it the best, but you're not going to do it. I said, a lot of what you've seen is not what was going on.
You buy your Bentley, you're not going to enter it into a demolition derby.
And that's the point. I'm not saying that there wasn't some mean owners, there were, but for the most part, it's not. And to make the point even more valid, a lot of slaves, when they were freed, stayed on the plantations. So you right there, it tells you it's not what they were told. I mean, most of the plantations, you go back and look at history, most of the plantations the slaves stayed. And the owners gave them land to help them stay. So it was a little bit different than what we
huge labor shortage.
Yeah.
So many dead white guys
Yes.
from the war. And so it's like after the plague. Suddenly all the barriers to farmers coming into the city were gone because they needed the workers. And so the economics usually, in fact, I will say always, trump the ideology. Mm-hmm. And so, there's still people that I know in Greensboro who still have the old attitudes toward race.
Yeah, they're still out there. I mean, it's going to take a while longer to get some of them.
Yeah, well, it's attrition. Eventually, they'll all die.
Well, the point, a friend of mine who grew up she's from West Africa. She spent a lot of time in Europe, and then they moved to Arizona, and she grew up, and then she went to New York and went to Philadelphia to go to become a nurse. And she had a hard time, not because she was Black, her first time as a nurse, it's hard to get a job, you got to get experience. So she got into hospice care, and she did that. And then finally she had a job, and she did that. And then she went and got her nurse practitioners, and then she went and got her PhD. So she moved out west.
Oh, yeah.
She personally lived in Oregon. I said, baby, you're going to feel like a candle. She's like, well, I said, you'll know when you get out there. So she calls me one day. She goes, son of a bitch, I feel like I can't. I'm like, why? I said, you're the only first black person for the whole neighborhood. I said, I told you in the beginning, it's 0.5% black in the population. I said, you're just staying there. And she's from Africa, so she's not American black, she's African black. And she's like, people stare. Everybody's real nice to me. She said, nobody's rude or anything. She said, but it's like they've never seen anybody that looked like me before.
Which is true. The only black people they ever saw were mulatto, were mixed race, which is what American blacks are.
So it's so few, and it's weird because California's got a decent sized population, but Oregon and Washington don't.
No,
and then when you get like an Idaho and all of them don't. So now, so like I said, because the South has so many people living in it, and but I have a lot of black friends. I've worked with BLM. I've got a lot of Hispanic friends for that matter. Shit, I even got some Chinese and Indian friends. I've never. I guess because of the way I was raised, I've always based people by their actions, not by their color or not even anything really. And I still do. I base pretty much everything by their actions. Somebody asked me about aliens. Well, I said, I base their asses by their actions too. I said, they're taking our citizens in probe. They're on my hit list, man.
Yeah.
They're on there. But I know we're going to get out of here in a few minutes. Anything you want to get? Just, by the way, this is a great interview. I really, truly enjoyed it.
Oh, well, I've been having a great time.
I want to get it up and get it posted. I'll tell you where to find it at. And we have a huge audience, and we don't. One thing I've liked about my audience over the years, and I guess because they know how big of an asshole I can be, is we have an audience that one is more understanding about stuff. They want to learn, and it doesn't matter what it is. It could be what we're talking about right now. It could be extraterrestrials. It could be states. I had Michio Keiko on, and we were talking one day. Poor audience. We lost the audience because we geeked out, and but we got into some deep conversation. She's like, man, he said, I've never had a conversation like this one with a host before. He said, this is freaking amazing, Joe. He said, I'm loving this. And we crossed, 15, 16 topics. He said, you've got to have some kind of science. I said, I have a bachelor in science. I said, but in avionics and electronics, not in, I said, I'm an amateur astronomer at best. And I said, at best, because I'm probably less than that. And he's like, well, he knows a lot about physics. I said, well, I've read Stephen Hawking's Universe in a Nutshell, which.
Oh, you're the one who read it.
Yeah,
because everybody bought it. They had to have it on the coffee table.
That book, I know it's supposed to be a layman's book. And I'm a layman.
He had not met a layman in years.
No, because I'm reading this book going, actually, you know what I'm reading the book and I have my computer and I get like, what the hell? Oh, that's what that means. Okay. And
yeah.
The whole book was like that for me. And once you do it like that, it's a little bit more understanding, but it's still a deep book in physics, and it's not for the everyday person.
No.
I mean, if you're into physics or getting into physics or that kind of science, it's a good book.
No, it is a book that is so dumbed down from what he would say to other professionals in his field, and it's still out of our reach, out of regular reach.
It was a tough book to read, and I finally got through it, and I was like, I still remember I went online. I'm like, son of a bitch, man, I'm tired of reading this.
Yeah, yeah. But see, I would have given up. I used to have to finish any book I began. It just was a compulsion. And then along about the age of 50, I thought, I'm not going to be alive forever.
Yeah, no way.
There's a finite number of books I can read. If I'm not enjoying it, if I don't trust the book, why in the world am I going to waste any of my precious reading time?
I agree with that more. And these days, too, I ask people when they have audiobooks to send them to me in audio. It's easier for me because I'm doing my day job or I'm doing the radio station, so there's not much free time, but I have a lot of time I can listen.
Yeah.
Because I can multitask. So. And I do a lot of driving, so I got a lot of times. And when I live in the Gulf Coast now, so I have to drive in the morning to work, which is about an hour and 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Going and coming. So that's a lot of time I can sit and listen. And I enjoy listening, especially if they're decent voice with decent audio. I'm like, yeah. One lady I tried to listen to, a voice sounded like somebody was punching her head. It was so high pitched. I'm like, why would anybody put this on?
No, that's.
And then what was his name? He was a black guy. He had a great voice.
Oh, just a second. Let me shut up my phone. I'm sure it's my wife calling me.
She's like, where'd you go, Orson?
Nope, it's not. It's just spam.
He's like, where'd you go? But there's a lot of good voice people out there. And I tried to do Microsoft Sam one time. I felt like my head was splitting. It's we are here. I'm like, no, I can't do that.
No, robot voices don't work.
I need a nice flowing voice.
Yeah.
Good voice. I was listening like last night, the comedian guy. I've been listening to Mission Earth. John gave me one of the few audio copies available. And I guess eventually they're going to make me review it because it's not available. And you get the book, but you can't get the audio copy. It's fabulous. It's got a lot of satire. You know what's so funny? Because of how long ago this book was written, so much fits in our society today. I was like, this is 40 years old or something. I'm like, It's amazing how much of that crap applies to today.
Yeah. And it can be discouraging.
Yes, it can.
But also the science fiction books reveal the decade in which they were written, because they will change all kinds of things, but the basics of the society are going to be the society the writer was living in at the time he wrote it. All the assumptions that you don't know you're making, it's going to be there. But there are things like that where you pick up your ambiance. Talking about race, I took my family to Provence, the south of France, for a month and a half, so that they would have a chance to practice their French. And I don't speak any French. I just shopkeeper French. But my wife had done a semester abroad in Paris. But we were in the south of France, and everybody's friendly down there.
Yeah.
One of my happiest things was when I said, I heard that people were unfriendly. And she said, oh, that's Paris. They treat us like that too. But I was there for just a few days. And this was in about 1997, 1996. I was there for just a few days, and there was something that made me really uncomfortable, and I couldn't figure out what it was, because the place was like a garden. It was everything was beautiful, and the people were all so lovely, until I finally realized they're all white.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd been living in Greensboro for 20 years, and I was used to seeing a certain dollop of black people among every group. And in Greensboro, in urban Greensboro, it's a really heavy percentage. And so what was going on in my mind unconsciously was, where did they put their black people? Well, now the black people are there. They just immigrated from North Africa and various other places. But when I was there, it was just lily white. The same era, I went to Rotterdam for a convention, and I just thought, this is the epitome of whiteness. The Dutch are so white. Now, of course, there are plenty of people from Indonesia and so on. So it's very much more mixed race. But when I went there, it was just shocking to see European populations that still were basically natives.
I think I'd just seen something recently. It's like 72, 73% white. And, it's weird because one of my directors is she's fairly wealthy. She lives in France. She's in the south of France, but in some mountain somewhere. And she says, she said, it was weird for me in America. I said, what do you mean? She said, when I came to see you in New Orleans, I've never seen that many black people before. I said, what are you talking about? She said, it kind of scared me at first. I said, why? She said, well, I just never seen them. I said, they're not going to bother you. They don't care about you. She's like, really? She's not saying they don't give no. They didn't care about you even little. I said, you seen where we went in neighborhoods, we went to different neighborhoods, we went to the casinos and stuff. We went fishing. I said, nobody cares that you were here. I said, the only time they cared when you opened your mouth and they knew you weren't from America. Then they kind of looked at you a little funny, but they didn't care what color. I said, for the most part in America, especially in the South and in the Heartland, we're not really color coordinated. I can't say that about up north or the West, especially the Northwest, but the rest of the country, and we're getting better, and we'll eventually, another 100 years maybe, we'll get there.
If we can finally stop having the government sort us out by race, man, that's so frustrating.
The government and the big media like CNN and NBC, they constantly race bait. I got into it several hosts of an NBC, at NBC. I'm like, why are you always talking about race? What? Matter of fact, I got into one of their big hosts, and he finally invites me on his show. He said, oh, I'm going to school you. I said, you're going to school me? I said, please invite me to your show since you're going to school. I said, you know where I live, right? No. I said, I live in New Orleans, in the deep South, in one of the blackest cities in the country. I said, so please school me on this. He gets on, starts telling me all this stuff. I'm like, dude, what fantasy land are you living in? I said, the only real problems in the South is it has nothing to do with race. It has to do with the economy. I said, you got your poor, you got your middle class, which is not that much anymore, and you got your rich. I said, it's economics. It's not about race. I said, we're not fighting about color down there. We're fighting about how we're getting screwed over on money.
Yeah.
I said, we don't care about the rest of it. I said, the South, and I said, it's just like being gay in the South. Nobody cares. And people say, oh, there's no gay people. I said, you've been in New Orleans. I said, the third of the city's gay. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
And I didn't know this until about 10 years ago, but where I live in Mississippi, in Biloxi, it has the largest single lesbian community in the country.
I had no idea.
I did not either. I was stunned. I mean, I knew there was a lot down there because my neighbor's lesbian and a bunch of others and stuff. I did not realize but let me rephrase that, the largest retired community.
So they haven't retired from being gay.
Yeah.
They've retired from working.
From working, and you'd be surprised how many were very well educated, PhDs.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I was like, so, but that's not how the media portrays it. They just portray them as hateful Southerners that hate everybody, and people don't want to come down. And then when people come down here, they're like, well, where's this? Well, I thought I was going to get hate. A good friend of mine, he's black. He lives in New York. He wanted to come down for Jazz Fest. He said, I hate you white people just beat up black. So it's like, where? He's like, New Orleans. I said, dude, the majority of the city it's 55% black. He's like, what? I'm like, yeah. He's like, are you sure? I said, yeah, I'm pretty positive.
Yeah.
He says, well, I hear that they no. I said, no, you come on down. Nobody's going to bother you. He's a black man. He's like, he comes down. He lives down here now. He moved. He said, because New York was far more racist than New Orleans was. And so I told you at the beginning, I said, it's the country has changed and it's going to stay changed for a while. I said, eventually it'll catch up. The North will catch up because they're going to have to. They're going to start getting hated on. I said, but they will. And then, for me, I notice it mostly comes from politicians now and the news media.
Yep.
And when I turn on news, it doesn't matter if it's CNN, it could be Fox, it could be ABC, it could be MSNBC. It doesn't really matter. They seem to run these stories in sync. And I love it when you look up and you see 5 of them running the same story with 5 different opinions on the same story. So that's why I started calling it opinion news. I even got into it with a couple of the big, like Vizzo and Samsung, that they have those TV sets. So I wrote to these people and said, look, you can't call this news anymore. This is opinion news. So I said, the local news has to be real. I said, because they can get sued. I said, anything that's real journalism has to be done a particular way. I said, but cable news is not news. It is opinion news. And I said, you go look at the difference between national news and cable news. There's always a big difference. Matter of fact, you can look at innocent NBC, regular news, and watch innocent NBC, and it's like you're watching 2 entirely different people.
Absolutely. Completely different cultures.
It's just ridiculous.
That's the thing that I found when Fox News started broadcasting was that definitely there's a slant on Fox, but no more than on the others. It's just in a different direction. But they were all bad mouthing Fox because Fox was getting more viewers because they were covering.
Still have the top 10 news shows in the country.
They do, and they deserve it, because I found that by watching Fox News, I found out about every story. And when I was watching the others, I only found out about the ones they decided to cover.
I noticed, especially with MSNBC and sometimes CNN, like right now, they're trying to protect Biden. And I understand that. That's our president, and I don't really hate on it. But when you start saying stuff like, oh, he's 10 points ahead, and you're like, where? Yeah. We have access to the polls. I'm like, I said, and I actually wrote to them one day. I said, I want to see where you got this data from. And I said, I own an American polling company. So I said, I want to see where you get this data from. I said, because we don't post a poll unless it's got at least 10,000. And we try to get as much 50-50 as we can. And he said, well, I said, we don't. I said, it's online poll, and we tell everybody about it. I said, my network broadcasts it. I said, my network's not all conservatives, it's not all liberals, it's not all this, it's not all that. I said, it's a big mix of people. I said, so when we put out a poll, we're getting a real poll. So far, our ABC has picked the last 6 presidents to the time. When I told everybody last time that Trump was going to lose, I got more hate mail than you can believe.
Of course.
I said, guys, the polls are just tracking that way. It's not me. Oh, no, you're wrong. And then he lost. And then I got even more hate mail.
Because you caused it.
Yeah, that's right. I helped it. I'm like, and I said, oh, well, he's tracking ahead. Oh, yeah, y'all love me now, don't you? Oh, yeah. Because right now, currently, in all 10 of the swing states, he's winning by at least 5 points.
Yep. And
what the Democrats want you to not think about is anytime Kennedy's name comes up, if it's Biden, Kennedy, and Trump, Kennedy's taking 10 points away from Biden. Not 4 from Trump, but 10 from Biden. So there's no way. With the overall amount of blacks swinging towards Trump and Hispanics, and now Kennedy being there's not a prayer. I mean, he's going to be a landslide. Unless he goes to jail, it's going to be a landslide. And if he goes to jail, I'm scared there might be a revolution.
I'm scared there might be a landslide still, too.
Yeah, and there's still going to be a landslide.
You can vote for a guy in jail.
And then what they're going to be just going to, I'm president now. Just give myself.
Yeah, just pardon himself.
That's right. This is going to be over. We'll have to have you on when that happens, when the show goes over. We're going to get out of here. Anything you want to say before we get here?
Well, no. I just no plugs for anything. I haven't had anything to come out in a while. But I'm just.
Books are still available. Right?
Oh, they're all of them.
Yeah, so
my publisher keeps them all.
Orson's books. Matter of fact, ladies and gentlemen, why don't y'all go buy some books and and tell me what you think and write me what your favorite book is. And we're going to have Orson back on in the future. So just write back and tell me what your favorite book is, and we'll talk to him about it when y'all come back and let me know.
And I'm grateful that you did not make me talk about my books in this conversation. We've been talking about everything,
Yes.
and everything interests me.
I always leave these up to authors because, well, on the network, for certain things, we have a rule. No buy my book, no buy my book, because we have people who come on and every 5 words, buy my book. I've actually kicked people off my show for that. I'll tell them, look, we're going to plug you at the beginning, we're going to plug you at the middle, we're going to plug you at the end. And there will be times during the conversation I will give you shots. But if I hear you every 5 minutes, buy my book, you're out of here. You're gone. I'm kicking you off the network. And my manager enforces that strictly. She's like,
Good for her.
We have right now I have 30,000 archives available, 75,000 hours. That's like 10 years. And I got more than that. I got over 100,000 archives. And I'm like, guys, I said, we have a range of materials. And I said, but we're not here. We sell books for people. And if it's going to be a sell you book show, I'll tell you in the beginning. We're here to promote a certain book, and we're going to be discussing the ins and outs of the book. But you know what's funny, Orson? How many experienced authors come in and give their book away? They'll tell you just enough. So I'll tell somebody, I always tell somebody, I don't want you to start at the beginning. I don't want you to start at the end. Just give me a little taste in the middle so nobody knows what the hell we're talking about, just something that's intriguing. Oh, no. I said, you just gave your book. I said, now I know what's going to happen in your book. And he said, well, tell me. I said, well, we're going to go break. When we go to break, I'll tell him what I'm like, oh, shit. I said, yes, that's what I said. Just a little bit. And I said, we can talk about a lot of things. I said, but if you do that, I said, people aren't as stupid as you think they are.
Yeah.
I said, well, especially good readers. I said, people who read a lot are not that easy to fool. But no, they do it. Especially, it's a rookie mistake for the young ones. But I've had a lot of veteran authors do it. And I said, how many radio shows have you done? Oh, I said, apparently not enough. I said, I always tell them, practice it before you come on. If see, our conversation is great. This archive will do fabulous. And this archive is Orson. This is who you are. This is not. So when people, now they know who you are, they're going to go read your books because now they're intrigued about the man, not the book. That's a whole different thing.
And that's the thing I learned. Science fiction conventions, my agent kept pressing me, now talk about your book, hold up your book. And I thought, that just makes me look vain and selfish.
And if you're interested, people are going to go get your book.
Exactly. So when I knew I was going to be on a panel at a convention, I would make sure that I had read something by every other person on the panel. And then when I was making a point and I needed an example, I'd use their books, not mine. I never talked about my own fiction. I only talked about other people's fiction. And it worked for me.
It works. Yeah, it works. That's a good thing because I learned a long time because people always ask me when I'm lecturing and stuff. He said, you don't self-promote. I said, I don't need to. I said, I do enough material. I said, I host Science and Beyond. I said, so if you're geeky science, you can go listen to that. If you're into the alien stuff, I do UFO in the cover. I said, Friday nights, I do 4 hours on the anchor for news on the flip side with 4 other hosts. And on Saturday, I do the author's quill with John. I said, I'm well-rounded. I said, you listen to me. I said, I may blabber about myself and personal life and stuff. I said, but I'm not going to talk about the show. I'm not going to get into this because I want you to come watch or listen to what we're talking about. And a lot of times, I said, I'll plug it. If I enjoy a conversation, it's like, well, you see, I'll be plugging you for weeks.
Oh, great.
Because I enjoyed the conversation. Now, if it would have been from someone else, I'd have been like, oh, well, we'll plug it. We'll post it, but that'll be the only thing that'll happen. I'll plug them. I'll be like, yeah, whatever. And when I started plugging people, it's different because my shows would see, UFO on the Cover does 3 to 4 million a week. News on the Flip Side is around 3 million. Author's Quill's about 1.5 million. Science and Beyond is about 500,000. So you're talking about 7 million people here we're going to be plugging. And it's not the same audience. It's because the UFO audience, they hate to come to me talk about politics. I hear all the time. Like just the other day, lady writes to me, you have got to be the most brilliant ufologist I've ever heard. She said, but you're a moron when it comes to politics. And I wrote back to her, well, thank you, baby. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Plus, if they don't like you talking about politics, I understand.
Yeah.
Politics means nothing to aliens.
Yeah,
They don't care. They don't care who's elected.
But I tell people, and somebody asked me one time, why are you a centrist? I said, because I have issues with left and right.
Yeah.
I said, I have different issues with different things. I said, sometimes I can go a little left. Sometimes I can go a little right. I said, but in the end, my politics are my politics. And I can't just go vote for a candidate because I'm told people vote for a candidate because they're red or blue. It just doesn't work for me.
No.
And sometimes if there's nobody else, I'll be like, oh, well. And I have voted for independents that have won. So.
And see that party line thing. My wife and I, she's a Republican, I'm a Democrat, registered, so that we can always cast a vote in both
That's a
primaries.
good thing.
But in fact, neither of us belongs in our own party. Neither of us is
Yeah, that's what made me
content.
centrist. I mean, I got to the point where I just couldn't sit there and listen to the bullshit anymore. And I said, okay, why? And said now, when I like on Friday night, so we'll do. It's a weird show because we'll do. So the first hour is usually we're just talking about news. So there's no opinions in the first hour. It's just news. We just promote a news. Oh, we heard this story, seen this story. Now the second hour we may go back and talk. We may express some opinions. There's always a lot of satire because all five of us are crazy.
Sure.
And one of the hosts on there is Sean Haslett. He's one of the winners from here. And I always warn people. I said, look, if you're Arthur and you start I said, but if you come on like my show and you're not taking sides, you're just bitching, it's not going to hurt you. So he's learned. He just gets into the fray. Oh, I was an idiot. Oh, that word. So now people, and he writes books like Real World 3 and Real World 2. So he's kind of a little bit more expressive. He was a tank driver in the military.
Oh.
And I was, I was in the Navy, and one of the other hosts was in the Navy. So 3 of the 5 of us were serving in the military. And so we get into all kind of stuff. And it's just a really good way to see news in a different light, because we want you to see the story. And we will give you somewhere along the line. It depends. A lot of stories we just say, this is the story, you make up your own mind.
Yeah.
There's nothing for Hestia to give you an opinion on, you just make your mind. There will be some stories where 1 or 5 of us will have to have an opinion on it. And sometimes all 5 of us have different opinions. And you know what? That's the news. That's how we do it. That's America.
That's America.
That's America.
It's how America used to be.
Friends. Yes,
yeah.
We're all still good friends. And by the way, that show, if you ever get bored, we bring guest hosts on all the time. And we let y'all come on. We'll talk about, like we were talking today, we talk about all that stuff on there. And we get into a great detail. I just tell, especially with new hosts, I just, I'm a little leery for some of the young ones, or I say young ones, like in their 30s and 40s, but still.
That's young.
And yeah, it is.
Especially within American education.
Yes, it is. And I just, I don't want them to ruin their career before it gets started. So I say, look, just, don't pick a side. Don't, if you go real hardcore left, all the righties are not buying your book. You go real hardcore right, none of the lefties are buying your book. Unless it goes like J.K. Rowling's. I can't stand her politics, but I did like her stories.
I don't care about her politics.
And so, the stories are pretty good.
Yeah. The Harry Potter series was good.
It was
it's funny.
good.
She had a whole career within that series, because at the beginning it was all fun and light and puns and jokes, because she was still playing. But then she started taking her characters much more seriously. And so we had a couple of books there that were really good books about people that felt real. And then she got the feeling that so many writers who were successful get, which is, whatever I write will be good.
Which she found that wasn't true. I mean, Harry Potter, I didn't like the last one all that much, but it was a good series. But then she did Weird World Animals or something.
Yeah.
That series it's okay. It's not a bad worst series, but it's definitely nothing like Harry Potter.
Well, Harry Potter was following Ender's Game.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not accusing her of plagiarism. You can't plagiarize a story. You can only plagiarize language. But she spent a lot of time reading fantasy and science fiction and stuff. And I wouldn't be surprised if she had read Ender's Game. And if you compare them point for point, young kid taken into a special school because he has abilities that are extraordinary. The school life is dominated by a game at which he's preternaturally good, and et cetera, et cetera. There are parallels, and
just one's in the future, one's in the past.
Yeah, and so I'm not offended by that at all, because
there's a lot of parallels in that.
Yeah,
okay, I have to think about that.
There are a lot, but it doesn't matter that there are parallels, because they worked for the audiences, and there can be no complaint about that. It's not plagiarism.
I was at a conference in New York. I was actually lecturing at the conference, and she was there, and she started talking politics, and I was like, "Oh, please stop! Please stop. You're ruining my view of you, JK. Stop." And I didn't care that she was a lefty; it didn't bother me. Then she got all crazy progressive. I said, "Oh no, now you're pissing me off." So when I came up on the stage, I was there to talk politics. And somebody said, "What did you think about that last 15 minutes?" I said, I'm not going to watch anything she's ever done again. She's done for me. I said, that's the end of this. I said, because I now see, because some of the other stuff I've seen she's done lately is push that particular agenda. I So that's it. I'm not going to look. I'm not going to
But
read. I'm
come
not
on,
gonna watch it.
wasn't it fun and funny when she finally reached a point where she couldn't be woke, which was about changing sexes, and
Yes.
and immediately they turned on her as if she were
Oh,
the
yeah.
devil herself. And I didn't love that she was getting that treatment, but since I've had that treatment, I've been canceled for a long time, and it was just funny that she had been such a loyal servant of that side, and suddenly they turn as if she were horrible.
That's one of the nice things about knowing me. I'm a defender of people who are unwoke, and people all the time try to get me. I'm like, what are you going to do? I said, nobody's going to stop listening to my. I said, do you know how many shows I offer people? I said, you might not listen to me, but you still can listen to the network. I said, and then they're like, one of my Democrat friends, right? I'm not going to quit listening to you. He said, shit, you're fabulous, Joe. He said, because I will sometimes, like when Disney decided when they were going to do, I'll come down on them like a ton of bricks. I was like, oh, well, I'm not bringing my kid there. You got to be stupid. I'm bringing my grandkids there either. I don't want them to see that shit. And I got all kind of letters, and then I even got some letters from Disney, and then all of a sudden it flipped, and everybody turned on them. They were like, oh, and then the DeSantis come out and started coming down on a brick, and then it flipped even more. I was like, well, see.
I got to say that DeSantis learned his place in history by turning on Disney. I mean, that was so good. Because
somebody asked me just the other day about what is it? I read them when I was in the Navy because it was a good read. It actually helped me steady out. It was Lord of the Rings.
Oh yeah.
And for me, it was weird because I read Lord of the Rings first, and then The Hobbit second.
Much better to do it that way.
And so when I got to see the movies, and the movies were pretty good. There was a few little things here and there, but I really enjoyed them. I was like, and the books really got me through tech school. Because one of my company commanders asked me, he said, "Man, you've been aggravated. What changed?" I said, "My roommate gave me Lord of the Rings," and I said, "I'm doing my work, and then I'll read a little bit of Lord of the Rings, and I'll do some work, and I'll read a little bit more, and I'll do some work." And I said, "Steady man, it got me through tech school, which was 18 months of hell."
That's amazing, yeah.
And then I didn't think about it again until I seen the movie, and that's when I did. Well, I read The Hobbit, and then I didn't think about it again. So I'm gonna tell you, I wasn't the biggest fan of The Hobbit, but
no. Well, it talks down. It's meant to be a children's book, and it never quite says "Dear Reader," but there's just this sense of, and that's just funny, and etc. A little asides to children. And so it's not his strongest work, but it's sold like crazy, and that's why they wanted to do the Lord of the Rings. But I loved the filming of Lord of the Rings as a movie. It taught me what New Zealand was for. It's to show us beauty. But Peter Jackson did not understand the story because he cut out the real ending, which is the scouring of the Shire.
You say that, and I somewhere along I was watching this, and did this guy read this book? There was a couple of times I got the sense that he may not have read the damn book. Somebody may have summarized the book to him.
No, I'm pretty sure he read it. He just didn't care. He didn't understand it. I mean, it was his strong opinion that the scouring of the Shire, that last long chapter, was a terrible mistake by Tolkien, because the story was already over. Because for him, when the ring went into the cracks of doom, it was over. Aragorn became king, married Arwen, etc., and so the story's done. But no, so
it wasn't done. And then at least he took him. He took what's his name to the with the fairies to go to wherever the hell they were going.
Yeah, Elrond. And
yeah, but you're right. They're and they took that extra 30, 40 minutes. They could have easily included it.
Well, they added in so much stupid crap, like the incident Aragorn falling off his horse. What was that about? That was just insane.
Doesn't show the horse was smart enough to come. I don't know what that part was about.
And so they were
anybody who was dying, because anybody who read the books already knew that was bullshit. And anybody who's been watching the movie could really get the feel. No, that's not going to happen. He's the star of the damn movie. Yeah. And so I'm with you. I'm not sure what that was about.
But what it was the self-indulgence of a director who thinks he's the author of the film. But it's okay. They were still worth watching. Oh, yeah, and so even though they built in a disappointment for me, I mean, I knew in the first of the three films that they were not going to end it well, because they didn't give Sam his box of soil. Yeah. Galadriel didn't. She gave him a rope. And so when I saw that, I just, my heart sank but I still went and saw the others
Yeah.
because it was just gorgeous to see
It was beautiful.
those mountains, those and the little hobbit towns they made. Oh
They
man.
did it. Matter of fact, I had a customer not that long ago asked me, he said, "Could you help me to do a house like that?" I said, "It's not going to be cheap." I said, I tell you what we could do. We could go find somewhere where there's a decent sized hill and sculpt it out from the hill and then cut into it and then, fill it in that way. I said, but dude, anyway it goes, it's not going to be cheap. And I said, you're going to have to customize all the doors to be round. And I said, you would remember they were set for a hobbit. You're going to make them for a human, so they're going to be bigger and more expensive and way heavier.
And really hard to turn because if it's truly round, there's only one spot for a hinge.
That's it. It's right there. I mean, you got to use a hinge about yay long. But I forgot what we used. There was spring loads.
So you ended up doing it.
That's not finished yet. When I get finished, I'll send you some pictures.
I would love to see it.
It's we're doing some of the work. There's 7, 8, 9 contractors involved. This guy's got money like you wouldn't believe. But he goes, and the other problem we have is this little shithead wants to change it every time I talk to him. Oh, I didn't like that. So we've actually done a lot of work that we took down and redid.
So you got to have more money than brains to do that.
And it's not. So it's a project that should have took about 18 months is going to end up taking about 4 years. And if you don't get crazy. So when we did the ceilings, I come in, I put in, so I used shiplap board and redid all, and 200-year-old shiplap board I put in there. So it would give you a nice effect. We cleaned it and stained it and filled it, and it was beautiful ceilings. He comes in, he says, it's the wrong color. I said, that's the color you picked. He said, but I said, it's like a golden oak color. He said, well, I don't know. I said, you know how much it's going to cost to sand all this down and redo it? I said, if you want to do it, I'll have my guys start on it in the morning. I said, but it's not going to be cheap. I said, you're looking at about $200,000, maybe $300,000 just to clean it up to get ready to paint again. He said, go ahead, do it. So I called about 8 of them, and I had to make sure the guys understood how to sand it because we didn't want bevels in it. And it wasn't just that, he wanted the frames, door, everything redone. So now he's got, it's like a mahogany. It's got just a little red in it to kind of give it and then he wanted everything quadruple lacquered. So, and not just lacquered, everything's got to be screened through cheesecloth before it's lacquered. That's going to be beautiful. I'm not saying it's not. It's
but
just, not just that. Anything we paint with paint has to be also screened through cheesecloth before it's painted. And I said, that don't really matter, right? He's like, oh yeah, it gets supposed to do. In the old days, that made a difference. I said, today, paint's not made like that. I said, paint is pre-strained before you even get it. Oh no, I said, yeah. I said, that's what's called contractor's grade. I said, you about a cheap shit, it's not, but contractor's grade is made just for the things we're doing. And he's starting to kind of get understand. He's he told me last time I talked to him, he's $5 million over budget, and still ain't even crying about it. I'm like, okay.
Whenever I'm $5 million over budget, I go bankrupt.
That's how you been bankrupt and crying like a baby. But it's going to be beautiful. And it's going to be 18,000 square feet. It's big.
No, that's big.
Yeah, it's big, and all the bedrooms around, all the kitchen. The kitchen is stunningly gorgeous, and everything's done in
Getting
wood.
furniture that fits in a round room.
It's going to be. Oh, he's having a custom built.
Of course.
This is. And then when we put the stove in, he didn't want any real looking stoves, so we had to go find older stuff that could run off of wood or fuel that you couldn't see. Couldn't be electricity. It couldn't be burning gas. I'm like, dude, you're making this really hard. And so we ended up putting in this would have been stoves like you would have probably seen in around 1890, somewhere around there. So we made it where you can't see the metal at all. It all looks like it's a wood surface and everything. Even when you open it, it's set, and we had to burn the wood so the wood wouldn't burn. So it looks like it's all wood going in. It's just beautiful, it's stunning.
But see, now there's one thing that puzzled me. I had not known you before, and so you spent so much time talking about your work in broadcasting and narrowcasting, whatever we call blogs, and all of a sudden you're a contractor.
I only do a contractor.
Okay,
I've been a contractor for 41 years.
So how are your bakeries going? The chain of bakeries that surely you run. Oh, okay. I'm just sort of extrapolating. What area hasn't he talked about? Or do you own a pool cleaning business?
I came out of the Navy, and I did a lot of things when I came out of the Navy. then I stumbled into contract, just like I did radio. It was an accident. And a friend of mine was with some big chain company and said, I need some help doing maintenance. And it rolled into construction. And so that's what paid for everything, including getting the station up and running. So it keeps the station up anytime we're in the red. So it's important to all of us. But
That's just wild.
These days, though, it's taking up so much of my time that I need to spend more time with my station. That's why I got a station manager so she can. But it's interesting, and I enjoy life. I got lots of degrees in lots of different things, and it's different things. Voice stress analysis, body language, facial recognition. I learned all that. I used to catch thieves for companies. It's one of the things I did when I was
You used to catch what for companies?
That's another one I stumbled into. I was going on an interview for a job. You're gonna love this. I went on an interview for a job, right? And for a management job. I'm like 26, I think. So they had a VCH set up and they had a tape in it. So I plugged in the tape while he went off and do it. I was watching the tape. And I watched like in 30 minutes, I caught like 7 people stealing. He comes back. I said, man, I was watching the VHS with any thieves in there. He goes, no. And I started smiling. I said, are you serious? He said, yes. I said, can I show you something? I turned it on. I said, you see that guy with his hands right there where he's pushing registers? I said, he's palming the money under the register so he can take it later on. I said, you see the guy who's supposedly dropping? I said, watch him. I said, his hands going on the side of the safe, not in the safe. The money's going down on the side so he can pick it up later. And he was looking at me like, no. I said, look. I said, I'll stop it and zoom. And he's like, son of a bitch, you're hard. He said, I'm giving you a whole different job. So I went in as a manager. I was going to go in for a manager for 125. He brought me in and charged the theft department for 175. I was like, okay.
You already proved your worth. Yeah.
I don't know. You know how life is. Sometimes you wear a few hats until you find the ones you like. And unfortunately for me, it took till I was about 30 to figure out what I really liked.
Well, I'm still looking. So,
look, and I'm going to try to, we're going to try a little authoring along the way. Somebody asked me, are you going to be an author? No, I don't really have plans on doing that. I said, but I would like to get 1 or 2 books out just because, one of them just account about my wife and I, what happened to us in Florida. I'd like to get that out. And then we've got so much data from a research organization that I run that I'd like to get some of that out. And then after that, I think no more books and no retirement. Somebody said, when are you going to retire? I said, they put me in a box.
Yeah.
I said, that's how I'm going to retire, just like the rest of my family when I'm in the box. But we got to get out here. I know you got things to do. And
well, not actually, but my retirement plan, for what it's worth, is write till you die. But right. I discovered that if my memory slips, then I'm not writing anymore. I have to be able to remember the book while I'm writing it. And I realized planning to write till you die suggests that you're still going to have your full mental and physical faculties. And not necessarily. After my stroke about 15 years ago, for a few days, I could not type anything because my left side wasn't useful. And so, it's all transient. And planning for the future is such a wasted effort.
A lot of time.
But it sounds to me like you just keep inventing your future.
Well, I'm trying to.
Yeah. And so that way it doesn't matter if you plan because there's another future still coming.
Well, that's another problem I have with trying to write anything. My memory is, how can I say this? It's not that it's gone. It just, so like when we were talking about the comic book, or earlier I was talking with Mark about the comic book, neither one of us could remember what a comic book was. It took 20 minutes into the show before one of us remembered what the hell a comic book was.
That is so funny.
I was like, and he's an author, and I was like, because we were talking, before we go, let me ask you about this. We were talking, usually when I talk about authors and illustrators, I always ask them about AI. Because, is it going to be a problem? Is it not going to be a problem? Is it something we're going to incorporate into our society? Because I've read a couple of so-called books by AI, and it's, how can I say this politely, garbage. So I read one the other day. A friend of mine brought me one that he made. So the front of the book was not bad. It wasn't bad, but everything in the middle was jibber jabber. It had words together that didn't even belong to each other. I'm like, dude, did you not edit this? He said, yeah, my editor did it. And I was like, really? I said, you need to fire him. He said, well, it's my computer. So you need to fire it.
Yeah. Said, if you're using the computer to edit computer language, you're already dead.
It was a joke. And then a friend of mine decided he was going to do this thing. He asked it to make a dingo fighting a kangaroo. It made the weirdest looking dingo and kangaroo I've ever seen. It had 5 eyes and a star. And it was crazy. Yeah. It was insane. But I'll tell you what happened just recently. I had the Miami PD call me, and they said, I hear you're an expert on AI. And I was like, really? And he said, yeah, especially on illustration stuff, and we'd like you to look at something for us. Well, something happened in a mall in Miami where they had to pull out 50 cops. They said this weird thing was running around the building. It was running through the building, and it was some 10-foot tall creature. I'm like, really? I was like, well, send me the tape. Send me. I said tape. So you can tell you how old I am right
No,
now.
we still say tape. We still say record.
I said, send it over to me. I'll take a look at it. So I'm looking at it. First thing I noticed, I'm looking at the inside the mall, and there's this big thing in the middle. And I look up, there's just a wraparound balcony. Well, this guy's walking along. So the guy's just sitting there on his phone. And you know as well as I do, if there's some weird creature running around, you're either going to be running or taking pictures, one or the other. None of that was going on. So I looked at the people on the ground. Nobody was running away from the thing. And then I noticed that the hands were about this long and the feet, the people, so I knew right off the bat it was AI. And so I called him. I said, and who is, I said, aren't y'all detectives? And he said, what do you mean? I said, look, we're going to share this. I'm put you on stream. I'm going to share this with you. I said, you see the balconies? I said, what are those people doing? He said, well, they're just standing there. I said, well, if that was a creature, wouldn't they be either taking pictures or running? And he said, oh, shit, I didn't even think about that. I said, you're the ones keeping us safe. And I said, I ain't coming to Miami. I ain't coming to Miami.
No, but until you think of it, you don't think of it.
Yeah, you don't. And he's like, man, thank you. Because now they want to know who did it. Because somebody did it and posted it online and made it look, and they did. They put 50 police cars out there. They blocked off the whole freaking mall thinking it was maybe a crazy animal or something. I was like, jeez, Pete, man.
Well, if you see it online, you have to think it might be true.
Yeah.
And if you ignore it, it's like a school shooting and you go, oh, there isn't really a school shooter.
God,
Then you're dead.
We did some interviews when all that stuff happened with Sandy Brook. They had some girl come on and tell me how it was actors and this, that. And I said, sweetie, I said, be real nice. I said, I don't know what it is. I don't think it was any actors or anything. I said, but you can't say that on my show. She's like, well, I said, first YouTube will throw me off, and so will Facebook, and so will everybody else. True or not, it doesn't even matter. They're going to throw us off. She said, what do you? I said, I don't know. I said, I actually knew people at Sandy Hook, so I know what happened. I said, so I don't think it was actors. I said, you might, and it's weird for me because I know a lot of people. So every now and then, when something happens like this, we may actually know somebody. And having as many hosts as we do, and as many friends as connections as we do, somebody always knows somebody, like at the theater shooting, or somebody always knows somebody else. We get a little bit more front things. The only one that was weird was with the Kennedy shooting, and I happened to know some people like Jim Mars, who was he was a fabulous writer. But he didn't write about, he said nonfiction. Well, aliens, he said aliens were here and existed, so he wrote it as nonfiction. And of course, the book, now I can't think of the name, he wrote about Kennedy. It was damn good. And there was a lot of stuff in there nobody ever thought about. I was like, shit, Jim. And him and I did the book. He did the book, and we did the review on it, and we did the whole thing online. And we did a really good show on it. He passed away like 3 weeks later. It was a shame.
Oh, wow.
And because people were asking questions everywhere. And he basically painted it as Russia, well, actually Cuba, Carlos, and CIA is basically how it painted. And then he brought in some marksmen and some experts to show that there's no way that it could have happened the way it did. And then he went on and on and on, and he had such a good research ethic that it was hard to argue with him. I mean, he spent just hours, and I get to cheat. I have all these hosts and all these researchers that work for me, because with iCar, I have 105 researchers that I have access to.
Wow.
So plus I've got friends in all kind of other industries, so it makes it easier for me. I just call them up. I say, hey, I heard this. Can y'all find out? Like when I came to Writers of the Future, when John told me all this stuff, I set 10 of my best researchers loose on their ass. I said, I want to know everything you can find out, every attachment, everything that goes on. I said, before I go see them, I want to know everything I can know about them. And when the girls came back and only had one or two things that were just basically bullshit, I was like, okay, I'm gonna go see them. And that was the end of that.
Yeah.
I know. Are you hungry? I'm hungry. Want to go get lunch?
Well, lunch?
Or what?
It's 3.
Oh shit!
No, I'm an old man, which means I start getting hungry for the one meal of the day about 3 to 5.
So you eat like I do. So I usually skip breakfast.
Always.
Most of the time I skip lunch, and I usually eat just dinner. And
Yeah.
I usually eat that when I'm just hungry. But hey, so we're going to get out of here. Orson, Corey, you were fabulous.
This was a wonderful conversation.
This was a great interview. Ladies and gentlemen, it will be available. Well, y'all know it's going to be available on the YouTube and Facebook pages as of now. It won't be generally available to archives until probably tomorrow, but it will be available then. So y'all can catch it up here. And if you're listening to it, you just caught a live interview out of Los Angeles, California, out from the suites. And we're out here for Writers of the Future. So again, if you want to join, you can't just come out here, people. So you have to win. If you're not a judge or you're not somebody important, you have to come out here and win. So it's writersofthefuture.com. Go over there, learn the rules, submit your thing. No more than 17,000 words. Remember that. Most of the winners are somewhere between 6 and 9, so keep that in mind. Also, one little piece of advice I'm going to give y'all before we leave. You need a hook in the beginning of the book. If you don't hook, and I know who the coordinated judge, if you don't hook them in the first 3 pages, your book's not getting read. It's just a friendly piece of advice. So do something. Don't wait 20 pages in to get something going, because it's not going to happen.
Yeah, and people think that's not good art, but in fact, it is good art, because you have to give people a reason to keep reading.
And I'm the same way. So, I see a lot of these really pretty covers. So, oh, look at this. I'm going to buy this book. And of course, I get in the book and the book's crap. And sometimes it's not. But I mean, usually if I'm 10 pages in and I haven't got something,
somebody that you care about, some dilemma that you want to know the answer to.
It's going on the coffee table.
Yeah.
It's going to probably stay there until somebody puts it in.
See, I'm old and you're not yet. But I'll tell you, I reached a point in my mid-50s where I realized I'm never going to finish all the books that I already have stacked up beside my bed. And so I went through them and thought, is there ever going to be a time when I pick this book up? Because I have nothing better to do. And I figure as long as reruns of Ridiculousness are on MTV and reruns of Bones and NCIS, I will never pick up these books. Never, because there's shows that I can watch.
Yep.
And so, it's okay to not finish every book.
It is. Unfortunately for us doing Katrina, we had a Linden library and with over about 4,800 books.
Wow.
And Katrina came along. Now, my house was lucky. We only got this much water, but all the books swole.
Yeah.
And just, they were ruined.
Yeah, you can't read them.
Every book we had a personal signal, So I was just like, this just really bites. And we tried to make it up, because I do radio and TV, so we were asking people, they were sending us books, but it wasn't the same thing. And none of them were made out to us. And I was like, but we still, so we still let them have them and stuff. And I got, Writers' Futures and all that stuff at the house. But I'm like, people will never get that collection again. And my wife had read every book in there. Not me, but she reads.
Wow,
she's
that's
like
good reading.
Freaking phantom reader, man. I brought her home one of Anne Rice's first books. And I got it in hardcover. I said, here. I said, I guess I'll see you a couple of days later that evening. She said, when we get my next book? I said, what do you mean? She said, I'm done, baby. I said, get the hell out of here. So I picked up the book, opened the book to the rest, and started asking her questions. I'm like, son of a bitch, you read this whole book.
Yeah.
This freaking book was this thick.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, and then after that, anytime I brought her home, she just read.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, now I got to go get her new glasses because she's, wore the other ones out.
So she wore them out. Not that her eyes didn't wear out. The glasses wore out. Okay.
Yeah, she wore them out. I don't know what she did. Scratched them up, bumped them up.
Yeah. Well, if clean them with Kleenex, even, it's the best quality of the tissues, but you'll still streak them and scratch them.
Actually, we ended up buying this thing. A jeweler got it for me. He said, look, you don't have to do this. He said, it cleans like it cleans jewelry. It just vibrates it in the water gently. And then you just take it and hang it off of one and let it dry on its own. He said, and it did. It was crystal clear. I was quite impressed. I was like, because I even tried it stuff you clean your TV screen with, and it just didn't do it.
Yeah.
But guys and girls, we're gonna get out of here because I'm hungry, and if Orson's get later on, I'll take him to dinner and stuff. But guys and girls, y'all be good. Check out this. Let me know what you think. I've seen a lot of comments while we were, because we're half live today, and for all y'all at this now, remember this was a treat. This is something you get to see before it actually gets put up with the site. So anybody who actually caught the treat, y'all should be. I noticed too, no one left at all. I'm impressed. Y'all just stayed for the whole thing. And I know it was really good, Bruce, wasn't it? I know. Yeah, Orson's a great. It's one of the better ones we've done since we've been up here. But we got to go because we got things we got to go do. And thank everyone again for tuning in to United Public Radio. And this will be listed with the Arthur's quilt, where Orson Scott Card with us. Going to get tongue tied. And be sure to go check out his books and encourage you to write some more. Good night, everybody.